We got over 30 minutes of footage of the Switch 2 running Cyberpunk, and it's pretty interesting, so let's talk about it. Ever since the announcement of the Switch 2, people have been trying to figure out how powerful this machine's gonna be, and even though we did get what the hardware specs are gonna be, some of the hardware is unique, so it's hard to predict what power it's gonna have. According to some tests, it's gonna be as powerful as a 2050, but there are some believers that think it's going to be as powerful as the PS5, which we all know is probably pretty wrong. So CD Projekt Red decided they were gonna release over 30 minutes of footage of Cyberpunk playing on the Switch 2 in docked mode, and Digital Foundry decided to analyze it. It seems like Cyberpunk is running very similarly to what you would see on the Series S and on the PS4, but the performance is where it gets interesting because the Switch 2 seems to be outperforming the PS4 and keeping up with the Series S, but it's not that simple. The Series S is outputting at 1440p while the Switch 2 is only outputting at 1080p, but they both are using upscalers to do it. But that's where the Switch does pull ahead because the DLSS that's being used on the Switch 2 is actually higher quality, so you get less shimmering and better quality results of the upscale. Whereas the Series S is using FSR2 and it's not quite as good, where you get a lot of shimmering and it doesn't seem to be doing quite an accurate job. But it's not all roses, because where the Series S is aiming for 60 frames a second in performance mode, the Switch 2 is actually aiming for 40 frames a second. And sometimes in the background when there's a lot of movement, the DLSS doesn't seem to perform very well and it actually performs worse than the FSR. So all in all, it's pretty impressive that the Switch 2 is performing as well as the Series S, even at a lower frame rate. But we have to remember, this is the initial launch, so nobody's actually optimized this hardware yet. And usually it takes about a year or two for the companies to be able to take advantage of all the power that's available on a chip. That means that there is potential for the Switch 2 to keep up with the Series S, if not actually outperform the Series S in some circumstances. It's a pretty interesting result. What do you think?